Hello, and welcome back to the Connected Careers podcast, where we're looking at the opportunities we offer for young people joining our degree apprenticeship program. I'm your host, Morgan Coates, and I'm a graduate engineer working in utilities for SYSTRA, UK and Ireland. I'm currently on SYSTRA's graduate development program, and I did a traditional degree where I went to uni for 4 years to get my master's. But today we're going to be exploring some of the other pathways into civil engineering and engineering in general, as well as, plenty of other disciplines. So today I'm joined with Adam and Arron. So say hi. What team are you in? And introduce yourself.
Hi there. Yeah, my name is Adam. I am level 6, which is Degree Apprenticeship level, and civil engineering. Yep. And
I'm Arron, again, degree apprenticeship, doing civil engineering. I've been with the company about a year and a half, so just sort of really getting into the deeper parts of it now.
Nice. That's fabulous. Okay, so what teams are you actually working in? Because you're both studying civil engineering, but I think you're working in different disciplines.
Yep. So I'm in the Bridges team, and I started out mainly doing modelling, and now I've grown, built more skills. Now I'm into consent and asset management.
I'm in the civils infrastructure team, so I'm same as Adam. A lot of modelling at the start, moving on to sort of a couple of different projects, sort of expanding my knowledge, bit of site visits. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's interesting because I think it demonstrates how apprenticeships are a bit different in that they sort of develop more over time, I think, because obviously you're doing university in parallel, but the company has to keep up with your university study. So obviously, whereas I probably went straight into a little bit more technically heavy stuff, you've obviously started developing those, I guess, more basic skills, but they're much more handy because I am useless at CAD. I think you guys are probably a hell of a lot better than me. I guess we should start at the beginning. How did you guys decide you wanted to do an apprenticeship, a degree apprenticeship? What was that thought process? And then how did you decide, like, okay, civils is for me?
I mean, personally for me, the only things I really knew was I didn't want to go to university. I've never been a fan of that sort of style of studying, being in a lecture all day. And I knew that I wanted to set myself up and make some money earlier in my life to sort of give me that security, So I sort of decided that an apprenticeship would be the best route. But because I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do per se, I had a look around and I had a look at different companies, found a company that I liked, which ended up being SYSTRA, and then looked at what they had available, and civil engineering being the one that caught my eye the most, I just decided I'll go all in with that, see how it goes, and, well, here I am a year and a half later.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Was yours pretty similar, Adam, or was it?
Yeah, I would say similarly to Arron, I didn't really want to go down the traditional university route. I think part of it was the fact that these days you're not really guaranteed a job after your degree, and like the amount of sacrifice that you have to take financially and also time-wise going into university. But then when you have an apprenticeship, you're kind of gaining experience, and at the same time, you're going to be working and learning at the same time. And when I went into sixth form, most especially, I went to a UTC, which is like University Technical College, where you're gonna be quite hands-on. They're gonna kind of guide you with the skills that you're gonna build. And I went to specifically, it was an engineering one as well, so I kind of had an insight into like different disciplines of engineering, learning a bit more about that, and that kind of put me on the right path to go, like, okay, this is exactly what I want to go for. Yeah. And here I am. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So both of you didn't want to do university, which is fair enough. And then there's a lot of different options with apprenticeships. It's not like university where you just look on UCAS and pick the ones that you want. How did you kind of manage that process? How many applications are you putting in? Like, what kind of stuff? How difficult was that section? Or was it easier because you weren't really thinking about university, do you think?
I think, in a sense, it was harder because you had less security. Like, with going to university, you could sort of, you could apply, you could have your backups, and you could know relatively sort of, have a relatively good idea that you will get a place, even if it's not the place that you really wanted. Whereas when looking for the degree apprenticeships, to be honest, I did quite well. I think I got about 4 offers in total, but sort of waiting for them to get back was very nerve-wracking because it's sort of, if I don't get any back, the point in time which I will know, it's a bit too late to go and apply again. So then where are you at?
Yeah.
But I think it was a very tedious process at first, sort of applying to them all separately, but using sort of sites like Total Jobs and Indeed, stuff like that, it did make it a lot easier. And obviously, with it being easier, that allowed me to apply for more and give me a bit more confidence about it. So I would say sort of it's not particularly harder than sort of going and looking for the university route, but it's definitely a lot more nerve-wracking, at least initially.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different process, right? I mean, a lot of people, they apply to different colleges and stuff. Like I'm sure it's a relatively similar process, but then applying for jobs is probably a bit more scary, right?
Yeah.
And especially as they are, like, apprenticeships are hyper competitive. Like, there are not enough apprenticeships currently available for the number of people who want to do them. Unlike, the number of university places, which is pretty stretchy as far as the market goes. But Adam, did you feel the same way? Or
Yeah, definitely. I think my process when it came to applying for apprenticeships was quite lengthy, I'd say. I applied to quite a lot. And, you always get the uncertainty when it comes to, some companies getting back to you a bit later on down the line, some that don't get back to you at all, some that they just reject you straight away. And then, other companies have different kind of processes or how they like eliminate candidates. And just the fact that you have other people around you who are maybe taking the university route and they kind of have that certainty quite earlier on than you.
Yeah.
They're taking this path, they're taking this path. It kind of puts you you kind of feel a sense of, doubt within yourself. What actually am I going to do after year 13 or after, sixth form? So
yeah, that next stage.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of understandable because the university process is laid out. It's got a set timetable. You submit your application in January, you get something back in I think it's March.
Yeah.
And then you know where you're sat, and then you just wait for your results, right? But apprenticeships are completely random depending on what company you're applying for and whatever. How did your sort of families think about the kind of the reputation of apprenticeships themselves? Was that a problem for you, or were they like, yeah, fine, whatever, do what you want?
I mean, for me, it was very much I was encouraged to go for an apprenticeship. I've got a twin sister. She went to university, but when I was sort of applying and looking at places, we were both told, they'd rather us go for an apprenticeship because they felt like the security of having, a job after, like what Adam said earlier, would just, it'd make those late stages of life and sort of after uni a lot easier. Because, if you finish uni and then you're stuck for a bit and you can't get a job, obviously that's quite a difficult place for a lot of sort of uni graduates. So I think my parents wanted me to avoid that. So they were definitely sort of very pro apprenticeships.
Oh, nice. No, that's interesting. That's kind of a new one. We haven't had anyone who was like, yes, this is
other way around.
Absolutely what we want. Yeah, but how was your family about it? What did they say?
Yeah, in fact, my family, especially my mum, she was really someone who liked the idea of apprenticeships, and she kind of encouraged me to go for that as early as back in secondary school. Started hearing it from people. Of course, we know that it's not as common out there, especially in the older generation, because they're used to the traditional route. But like, ironically, my mum was quite, pro apprenticeships as well. Kept on saying, look, after you finish like your A levels, go for apprenticeships. Look out for them. Try and get experience rather than just getting the degree with no experience. Try, get that job early on.
Yeah.
Like, expose yourself to like this kind of field that you want to go into early on. So yeah, I'd say I was encouraged to get into this as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you've got a passion and you sort of know what you want to do, then I think it's a really good route to just start building that experience. You're going to be ahead of your peers who have gone to university because they don't, especially those who don't know what they want to do and are kind of just doing it because That's what they've been told.
Mhm.
So obviously you've applied to apprenticeships. You've got your apprenticeship places. What did you look for in your options? You've got, I don't know, 3 positive job offers back. What made you decide SYSTRA?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was sort of the company as a whole. When I had a sort of, bit of a deep dive into the company, what their sort of morals are like, what their objectives are like, I found that SYSTRA seemed to be sort of very dedicated to growing and sort of being very involved with like the newer generations and growing with the new generations, so supporting, all of the carbon issues and just really focusing on like the development.
Yeah.
Because with a lot of other companies, it seemed like you were there to be an apprentice, but a lot of the reason for you being an apprentice was just to sort of, just to get you in there, a bit of a lower wage from, they didn't have to pay. You didn't really care as much about your development, just about what you bring to the business. So for SYSTRA, when I looked at it, it seemed like it would be more of a fair exchange. I would get just as much from them as they would get from me.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really important to make sure you're a good fit for the culture of a business, any business that you're choosing to join. Adam, did you?
Yeah, I think the main thing about SYSTRA for me, why it stood out, is their presence, for example, like in the global market, like the way they've got projects that they're working on globally and in countries where many other competitors, you'd say, actually don't reach out, and the initiatives that they have, for example, in Africa and in the Middle East, and in, you can see that because obviously, like in engineering, civil engineering, of course, like the opportunity for different projects may fluctuate from place to place, and some places there'd be like a demand, and other places there might not be, and you have countries that are well developed and other countries that are still developing. So you have there's different scope of tasks here and there or projects. So it's nice that SYSTRA are involved in various types of projects across the whole of the globe, which is more opportunity in general as well.
I mean, obviously SYSTRA does have a globalized workforce where there's 11,000 people worldwide. How do you find managing yourself in that kind of hybrid environment and learning in that learning experience is obviously quite different to what it had been before the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think the hybrid working, is a very big benefit, which I think for a lot of people, they probably don't realise just how sort of beneficial it can be. I think with sort of a lot of people going through the standard traditional university and having sort of different schedules, a lot of the time it's very easy to miss out on opportunities that they have with sort of social interactions. But having that flexibility with SYSTRA and this hybrid working, it sort of allowed me to stay a bit more in tune with what they're doing and not be sort of just at the side doing my own thing, just sort of working.
Not separating yourself from that community quite so entirely, which is really, really nice.
Yeah.
How about you, Adam?
I think, hybrid working is a massive advantage, I'd say, especially now outside of COVID, where we've realised that there's more to work than just being in the office.
Yeah.
And I'd say especially as an apprentice, as a degree apprentice, where you've got university as well to think about, like it's easier to organise yourself. So say like maybe after work or you need a certain bit of time to kind of revise or get ready for something else, it's easy to organise yourself. And not disregarding being in the office as well, because it also has benefits as well as an apprentice, because you're going to learn more and you're going to learn better when you're in the office with people and having that interaction, I'd say. But of course, that element of being able to work from home when needed, of course, is a big advantage as well.
Yeah, no, it's really helpful.
Yeah.
When you need it. I guess we can rewind a little bit. That first week, you've just got a new job. You've just arrived. You don't really know what you're doing. I don't know if either of you have worked sort of in an office environment before joining the company. Like, how was that experience and that transition into work?
I mean, personally, for me, it was definitely very nerve-wracking. Sort of coming into it, I went to Leeds office, but I was supposed to be in York office, which created a bit of an issue. So once I got to York office, it was a bit more, calm down. Once I knew I were there and realised, I wasn't surrounded by sort of, potential competitors, people who are gunning for the higher jobs like me, I sort of realising that I'm among future friends, I guess, and colleagues. it definitely was quite scary, but was very easy to sort of settle into it, I think.
Yeah, I think especially as young people, we have this wrong perception of like the office life and what we see in movies and whatnot.
The office.
Because like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember my first day, I came in full on dark blue trousers and suit and like full on shirt and everything. It's like, yeah, I was overdressed. I'll just say I was overdressed, and I came in like, it was a bit, I was overdone. I'll just say it like that. Yeah. It wasn't that, I didn't have to go to that level. And I thought that when I'd come in, I'd have to be like, you know, obviously you keep to a level of professionalism, but you can also have a laugh sometimes, you know, speak to people about, you know, stuff outside of work, or have common hobbies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You can have that within the workplace, and that's something now that I've learned about being in office, and it's an advantage again as well as an apprentice to learn this earlier on, so that you won't be, other people may be intimidated when they, you know, when they take the traditional route and then go into, you know, that, and they're not used to it basically.
Yeah, no, I think workplace culture is really important. Like it's completely different to any other place I've ever worked, and yeah, I'm really glad for that, because I think it definitely improves my own sort of emotional intelligence and cognizance. Both of you go to university. I think both of you use different formats. Adam, are you on block release?
Yeah, so I'm on block release, which means every month I go for a week.
I'm on day release, so just every Monday I go to university. Just like anyone who goes to university full time, same sort of layout, just only 1 day a week.
Yeah. And how do you find university? Do you think you get as much out of it as other people?
I think it's difficult to get a lot of the social side from university. We've just sort of been there for 1 day, and obviously with everyone being working full time, there's less of a sort of incentive for people to hang around and stuff. It's more you go in, you get done, you get home, sort of like that.
Yeah.
But with it being an apprenticeship in the same sense, I think it has its own sort of aspects that allow you to have that social side out of university that you wouldn't get sort of, you know, if you want working. So I think it does balance out. It's just a bit different to sort of, you know, being in full time. You know, most of your friends will be outside of university instead of having, you know, your main group of friends being at university.
I think that's pretty reasonable, right? I don't think anyone's pretending that your social life is possibly going to be as rich as if you were at university full time. But these are the kind of trade-offs that you have to consider when you're applying for an apprenticeship, isn't it, really?
And I think personally, because I'm on block release, and we stay at the university, so I kind of get more time outside of, you know, the studying hours to, you know, connect with the other students or the people in my class and my lectures. So I think that's got a bit of an advantage being on block release rather than day release, where you do your hours. So after that, you just go back into work the next day.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, and different universities do it in different formats.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, SYSTRA uses lots of different training providers to provide its university degrees, and then other companies will use other ones, and that's just something else you have to research, isn't it, really, when you're applying to get what you actually want out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's everything. Perfect.
Nice.
Thank you for sharing your experiences with me and our listeners today. We also need to say a massive thank you to York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority. As part of their Keystone Employer Group, SYSTRA is working to encourage young people into education, employment or training by giving early careers professionals the opportunity to work on some of the world's largest infrastructure projects.